In April of last year when this video was recorded, I was still in a relationship and I still had my appendix. I no longer have either. So to preface, this video is just for funsies. Also, I believe the more silly videos I put out in between serious topics, the more I delay my CIA visit. So this is an anti-that video. This video took me about 2 weeks to script. 2 weeks still feels like too much time. I'm a perfectionist about everything. I wore a bit of color today. I realized I don't wear a lot of color in videos. I was going through my thumbnail from like the last few videos and they were all a black shirt. Different black shirts. I have a lot of black shirts, but they were all black shirts. So this is anti-black shirt as well. Today we are going over ancient UFO sightings. That's the fact part. The fun part is I'm gonna rate them on a scale of 5 stars. So also welcome to Not History, where I try to explain old-timey things with enough background history and events so it makes sense, but I don't want to spend too much time on it, so maybe it doesn't always make sense. Google is free if you're confused. That's really what I wrote. That's the script. Let's just get started. In 218 BCE, Roman historian Livy recorded many portents. Basically, portents are a sign that something historic or like really good or really disastrous is about to happen. I'm also not gonna use anything to tell me how to pronounce any of this. It's just for funsies, so I'm gonna butcher everything. One of the portents was, quote, phantom ships had been seen gleaming in the sky. Right away I was like, yeah, that's a UFO. You got me. However, not every UFO in this video is a UFO. I know. I'm sorry. I really am sorry. I am also disappointed. I had to be realistic. I had to do my due diligence for you guys. I read this entire part of the text of Livy explaining all of these portents and everything that everybody had been saying, and basically he's explaining how once a claim of a miracle or like an extraordinary thing happened, everybody else also started making these claims and it got everybody really riled up and excited. That phantom ships had been seen gleaming in the sky, that the Temple of Hope in the provision market had been struck by lightning, and that Lunuvium, a slain victim, had stirred. In many places, apparitions of men in shining raiment had appeared in the distance but had not drawn near to anyone. So they weren't just saying they saw UFOs. They were also saying they saw babies talk. They saw dead bodies moving. Like a lot of extraordinary things were kind of happening all of a sudden. It kind of feels like urban legends traveling or the Romans crying wolf or just like fun gossip. I give this sighting a 3 out of 5 stars. It would be 2 out of 5 stars, but the research was really fun, so I'm gonna give it an extra star. Roman author and natural philosopher Pliny the Elder wrote in his natural history encyclopedia thing, a spark was seen to fall from a star and grow as it approached the earth, and after it became large as the moon, light began to shine as on a cloudy day. Then, when the object was moving back to the sky, it changed into a torch. This was recorded in the Roman province of Asia, which is now Turkey. Just so you feel like, you know, really setting the scene. Now, a dude from NASA Goddard Space Flight Center, that's his full name. In 1987, dude from NASA Goddard Space Flight Center claims that it was a meteoric fireball. So he just has like no imagination whatsoever. So he says it's a meteor fireball. But the way that it maneuvers back up into the sky is what gets me. That's what really makes me skeptical, because meteors, as far as I know, they just go down. Pliny also apparently recorded many meteors, but like for some reason this one was different and really stood out to him. So it stands out to me. Anyways, 4 out of 5 stars. Pliny, I think you got something, bud. So our last BCE one, which like, thank fucking God, because trying to give background on all this ancient Roman shit and events is like a fucking maze. I'm gonna have to read this one straight from the script. Plutarch was a Greek Middle Platonist philosopher, historian, biographer, essayist, and priest at the Temple of Apollo in Delphi. So he wrote his UFO sighting in Plutarch Lives 2, and it happened right before a big battle. The details of which I'm not going to go into because this isn't a fucking history lesson. But presently, as they were on the point of joining battle, with no apparent change of weather, but all of the sudden, the sky burst asunder, and huge, flame-like body was seen to fall between the two armies. In shape, it was most like a wine jar, and in color, like molten silver. but both sides were astonished at the sight and separated. Okay, so this was reported by both armies. Could it be a UFO? Absolutely it could. Anything's possible. The whole molten silver thing really gets me because we all know what the typical UFO flying saucer disc thing looks like. It's silver, it's metallic. Does it sound a little bit like a myth or like some religiosity? Absolutely. Absolutely it does. This gets a 2.5 stars for me. It really could go either way, but it doesn't make me go like, ah, yes, you know? So let's move on to the Common Era. Flavius Joseph was a Jewish Roman historian and military leader, not long before what I believe is the First Jewish-Roman War. Joseph wrote, "Before sunsetting, chariots and troops of soldiers in their armor were seen running about among the clouds and surrounding of cities." So I was like, that sounds like some more religious shit. Jewish people are about to rebel against the Romans, so maybe it's like a Bible-y vision or sign from God. So that came from like a lot of text. Like there was so much text to sort through, and it was translated exactly, so that's why the vocabulary and the grammar sounds like a little awkward at times. But someone else translated it into something way easier to speak, which I am now going to translate again into more today's speak as a treat, just for you. Joseph pretty much says, hey, I know this sounds like a parable, and like, yeah, I would think that too, if it weren't for all the people who saw it at the same time and all the shit that was about to go down that it kind of symbolized. They saw chariots in the sky. That's what he said. An important part of all of these old-timey sightings is just they have a different vocabulary, which is something I've noticed in the documents I've been reading for the super long video. They use words they have, like Plutarch said it was shaped like a wine jar, so I was picturing like a mason jar or like a cookie jar, but when you look at the actual picture of what a wine jar was to them, it looks more like a vase to me. I would consider a UFO a vehicle of sorts. Like a rocket is a vehicle, I guess. We could classify those under, it's just anything that takes like a person somewhere, right? They don't have cars. They don't have rocket ships. What do they have? Chariots and boats. Anyway, I could do like a whole video on how many of these sightings are like, there's a war in the sky. Be it, you know, chariots or boats. I'm gonna give this a 2 out of 5 stars. If he just saw chariots, I'd be like, yeah, sure, UFO. But he also saw like soldiers in armor with swords and shit, so not really my thing. There's a lot of video left to record, but this is like the second intro because most of this video is going to be recorded in this second half. Hi, it's January of 2024. And of course, we have Wendell. I have a sneaking suspicion that he actually caused the power outage during the blizzard when it was -5 degrees outside last week. Is he the video god? Is he the video demon? Have I not sacrificed myself enough recently? These are the things I think about when I'm not making videos. Let's just go. Let's talk about Cassius Dio. We have another historian, folks. Cassius Dio, fun fact, apparently in 22 years, he wrote over 1,000 years of ancient Greek history. I can't write more than like 5 videos a year. Cassius Dio reported silver strands raining from the sky. So he did what any of us would do and covered all of his coins in them. This came after a night where he and others saw a great fire in the sky. I probably should have said that first, but we're just rolling with it. But 4 days later, it was gone. Silver strands evaporated. So I have heard of angel strands happening after UFO sightings. Some describe it as chalky, where others describe it as more spider webs substance, like almost like a gelatinous situation. I'm not really into it. However, this does make me think of the brown gel that they found on the mutilated cow bodies in Hunt for the Skinwalker that would sort of evaporate, essentially just disappear. I'm gonna put on my tinfoil hat now and speculate just recklessly. Maybe the silvery stuff is just like a byproduct of UFOs. Like maybe they dumped it on purpose to get rid of it. Maybe some otherworldly chemicals cannot survive on Earth for long periods of time, which is why they disappear or evaporate. In 196 CE, that shit could last days, but maybe because of our changing climate, it can only last a few minutes or a few seconds now. A well-documented thing with UFOs is that they leave behind high levels of radiation, sometimes even dangerous levels of radiation. Was that silvery stuff like really bad for him? And then Cassius Dio just like had had it all over his grubby little hands. He did live to be like 80. Maybe it just like preserved him, like when you do the right amount of meth and it kind of pickles your organs. That's not like a proven thing. That is a theory of people that I know who have done meth. Did he see a UFO? I don't know. Was that silvery stuff UFO? I don't know. Okay, Cassius Dio gets a 3 out of 5 stars because it was fun to think about and it was fun to talk about. And we're back to my favorite game. Is it God or is it aliens? An important question that we started asking in BC, in the Roman Empire, and we're gonna continue to ask in the 1500s. The celestial phenomenon over Nuremberg. Luckily, in the 1500s, we had newspaper type things, so we can read more really thick translated text. It's basically describing a fight between globes and spheres and then saying, is it God? I think I'll end up skipping the recorded air fight in the Irish Annals because it was a lot to ask of myself for something that was essentially men in ships in the sky again, and is it God? That kind of thing. And I'm not saying this doesn't sound like that because this does mention blood red crosses, and I did spend 11 years deep in the church, and this sounds like some religiosity bullshit. Is it possible that some of these were actual extraterrestrial fights? Shit, I guess. Like, I don't know. I basically believe aliens treat Earth as like one big science fair experiment, so I guess I would kind of feel like a dick to be like, no, that theory is wrong and stupid and bad. But personally, I don't think so. I would love to be proved wrong. I would love for early society to have witnessed some insane alien war in the sky and then have just been like, wow, God is wild. And then they just moved on. Like, that would be kind of sick. I find the spheres interesting because in the context of alien spheres that I've read about, both for future videos and for like Hunt for the Skinwalker, they do things like grid searches, or in the case of Skinwalker Ranch, they seem to almost be like watching the Gormans or trying to distract them or like lead them away so other things like cow mutilation can happen. So spheres waging war in the sky with our limited knowledge and them all being brushed with this coat of religion just feels like a no to me. But just for you, I'm gonna put my tinfoil hat on again and we're gonna have a little fun with it. Perhaps they were waging a fake war. We have no way to really find out because if they didn't connect the dots, we're simply not going to. But were these like grand displays in the sky some sort of distraction? And if so, what were they doing while everyone was distracted? That is an answer I don't have. I wish I did. I wish I came up with something creative for that, but I didn't. I have no idea what they would have been doing back then. Another thing that's mentioned in this Nuremberg celestial phenomenon is black triangle ships. A UFO sighting not only mentioned in Hunt for the Skinwalker and for another alien video that I'm researching and I've been researching for years and I promise one day it'll get to you. It's mentioned in all kinds of UFO sightings. This black triangle ship and the spheres. Those are the big ones. Anyway, for the black triangle ships and the spheres, I give it a 4 out of 5 stars. I really think there's something here. We've had a lot of fun here tonight, folks, but in order to get through the rest of this video, I had to get a little picky because the more time goes on, the more UFO sightings there are. And some of them are really boring. I looked up, how do I pronounce this? And the answers varied. This one is short and sweet. According to the annals of, I'm not even going to pronounce this one, I will just put it on the screen, Dynasty, these unidentified objects look similar to washbowls and appeared with thunder, bright lights, and fog. Sounds like a flying saucer to me. Flying saucer is one of those things where like, that trope had to come from somewhere. Maybe I could make a video about that. That sounds like something I'd make a video about. Oh my god, this has multiple hooks. Can you tell I've been off my Adderall for 3 months? So I can't find a lot of information on this because I could only find the actual text on a website that translated it, and that was basically all the information that we got. So 3 out of 5 stars. Flying saucer? Cool. Lit. Short story? Fucking fantastic. So this one is kind of boring to me. Maybe it won't be boring to you. I almost wish I could skip it, but it is America's first UFO sighting, and You know me. America. Oh, and since I'm here, and since we're going to talk about America for the next few stories, ceasefire now. Seriously. Seriously. For fuck's sake. Stop the genocide. Like, I don't even have the words anymore. What are we doing? And by we, I don't mean us, because the majority of the country wants a ceasefire and does not support the genocide of Palestinians. But our government is too scared of Israel to actually do anything. Instead, we are supplying them with weapons. I have links in my description on how to contact your representatives and call for a ceasefire. And you need to really think where you're putting your money when you go, I don't know, get coffee or get food, and really look up the companies and just that are supporting Israel. That is the only thing we can do. And it feels silly to say that in this video because I'm about to say some really silly things, but I think it's important to say regardless. So let's get silly again. Please do what you can. Picture this. It's 1639. John Winthrop sits down to record his diary, just how life is as the colony settled into their new, strange home of America. Rather calmly, he inks his pen and records some batshit crazy things. He said, quote, "A sober, discreet man and a few companions were rowing a boat in the muddy swampland type area when suddenly they saw a light in the sky, and quote, when it stood still, it flamed up and was about 3 yards square. When it ran, it was contracted into the figure of a swine. For 2 to 3 hours, the light ran swift as an arrow back and forth from them in the boat to the settlement of Charlestown, which, quote, diverse other credible persons saw the same light after about in the same place." When it was finally gone, the men found they had rowed against the current upstream but had no memory of doing so. Some call this lapse in memory an abduction, but I don't really think that's it. I feel like more they saw the light and were just kind of drawn to it, and so they rowed towards it. Rowed? Yeah. And they sort of followed it without even thinking. The way that these extraterrestrial lights kind of have a way of doing, just mesmerizing people. 5 years later, Johnny Boy wrote,
"About midnight, 3 men coming in a boat to Boston saw 2 lights arise out of the water near the north point of the town cove. It formed a man and went at a small distance to the town, and so to the south point, and there vanished away."
Yup. I can't begin to explain how hard it is to read some of this shit. Is it a ghost? Is it a UFO? I don't know. The story is both funny and kind of boring, and I both wish I didn't and am glad I did include it. 2 out of 5 stars. I don't know what's going on with me. Guys, I'm falling apart, to be totally honest. 1896 through 1897, the mysterious airship wave. This is gonna include many sightings that I will be rating separately, but they all are under the umbrella of the airship wave. These sightings, which specifically happened in America between 1896 and 1897, but also happened worldwide in the 1880s and the 1890s, are said to be the birth of the modern UFO sighting. These include mystery lights, flying saucers, and even extraterrestrial encounters. We start in Sacramento. The Sacramento Bee reported in the evening of November 17th a light moving slowly over Crappermento about 1,000 feet in the air. One cheeky witness, Lowry, said he heard the captain yelling commands to increase elevation to avoid hitting a tall church steeple. But witnesses said, "Joke's on them. There was no church in the vicinity. That was a bar." I'm gonna read this verbatim because it's fucking hilarious. And if I speed it up, it's probably because I'm bad at reading. Lowry further described the craft as being powered by two men exerting themselves on bicycle pedals. Above the pedaling men seemed to be a passenger compartment which lay under the main body. A light was mounted on the front end of the airship. Some witnesses reported the sound of singing as the craft passed overhead. That's real. So our mans really said the aliens were bicycle pedaling away, like Peloton style, singing a happy little tune. And all I can hear is the Smurf theme song. Lowry is really sure it's a bar that they were trying not to hit, but I'm wondering if he himself were just a few drinks in. Yeah, I'm gonna give that a 5 out of 5 for entertainment purposes only. On November 19th, 1896, the Stockton Daily Mail, I gotta remember that these places probably didn't suck like in the 1800s. Like they're probably like new and booming and full of life. Stockton Daily Mail published a witness statement from Colonel H.G. Shaw. He claims he was just cruising in his buggy down a country road when he saw a landed UFO. He describes it as metallic and shapeless except for the rudders and pointed ends. Some would call that a shape, but not Colonel Shaw. He saw 3 snatched, skinty, 7-foot-tall aliens approach his car with warbling voices. Reportedly, the aliens then examined the buggy and tried to force him out of it before realizing that he was an alpha and they were far too beta. I don't know why, but I really like the idea of an alien abduction being like a regular human abduction rather than like a tractor beam coming out of the sky and pulling you up into the ship. Like aliens just approaching you and trying to kidnap you. I don't know why, I just think it's very funny. Anyway, they got back on their ship and they flew away. This is apparently the first recorded attempt of a kidnapping by ETs. I just don't believe this in the slightest, but it did make me laugh, so I'll give it a 1 out of 5 stars. Some history drama, which is my favorite. Due to the times, the public believed that some mad inventor had done this and just not taken credit for it publicly. So much so that Thomas Edison had to come out and make like a strong statement where he basically said, "I'm great. We can all agree that I'm great. But I didn't do this, please stop harassing my family." Then we have a story that I'm not actually going to tell because it seems like a senator taking advantage of rising racial tensions. One thing I've never felt about aliens is that they're racist, so that's a 0 out of 5 stars. It's just a fucking weird thing to do and say. On February 2nd, 1887, the Omaha Bee reported 2 witnesses had seen an airship crash. Then suddenly, where the ship was, a man was standing, and he showed witnesses a device that could shrink the ship down small enough to fit in his pocket. 1 out of 5 stars. I love the creativity, but we all know aliens don't have pockets. On April 10th, a St. Louis newspaper published a story coming out of Springfield, Missouri, where one W.H. Hopkins encountered an airship which propelled down using 3 propellers. The crew consisted of a beautiful nude woman and a bearded nude man. Hopkins tried to communicate with them to see where they were from, as you would do if you encountered 2 naked people. Eventually they understood and pointed to the sky and said something that sounded like Mars. I haven't included it up to this point because it didn't really seem relevant, but a lot of these ETs apparently claim to be from Mars, which really bugs me because I don't think the aliens are coming from Mars. Anyway, 2 out of 5 stars. It sounds like some bisexual's fantasy. Hopkins, you can come out to us, buddy. It's okay. We're all here for you. This is a safe space. This man is long dead. This man is gone. On April 16th, the Table Rock Argus claimed a group of anonymous yet reliable witnesses saw an airship with people inside in what sounds like a classic hostage situation, complete with people being bound and gagged. What are we doing here? What am I doing? I'm not even gonna rate this one. People are just making shit up at this point. Why is this even in my script? April Clever Haunts, what were you doing? There had been reports in Aurora, Texas of a cigar-shaped ship passing over town. Remember cigar-shaped ships. Look in my eyes. Remember that. That's gonna become important in a later video. Later, on April 19th, the Dallas Daily News reported that a couple of days prior, an airship crashed into a windmill. The pilot was dead and really, mutilated, just beyond recognition, but was clearly not an inhabitant of Earth. Weird hieroglyphics were seen on the ship, which was described as, quote, looking like a mixture of aluminum and silver and weighed several tons. Apparently, they gave the ET pilot a proper Christian burial in a local cemetery. When the aliens invade and they're all pissy about the several aliens we've supposedly taken dead or alive as a country, I'm gonna point to this one and be like, hey, we were good at one point. One time. The article also mentions that along with the windmill, the crashing airship destroyed a flower garden, and the article ends with the pilot's funeral announcement, which will take place at noon tomorrow, 100 years ago or whatever. So the alien was indeed buried in Aurora, Texas. But we can't just leave well enough alone, can we? In the 70s, the grave marker was stolen. Since then, they think they've located the grave with ground-penetrating radar, but the cemetery refuses to let them exhume it. Rest in peace, pilot. 5 out of 5 stars. Real or not, this was the best story so far. And that's the end of the airship wave of the 1800s, and the end of this video. I feel like 10 stories was enough. I feel like I got my point across, and I did what I came to do. I don't know what I'm supposed to say at the end of this video. Because it's the first video of 2024, I feel like I should be making promises for what the rest of the year is gonna look like. And I say this all the time, but every time I try to make a goal for posting, it never happens. I jinx myself. So I'm not gonna make any goals for posting this year. I don't know if I'm missing anything. I'm trying to post more on Instagram. You should go follow me on Instagram. I don't really feel like there's much else to say. It feels good to complete this video, and I hope it gets out in January. I'm Clever Haunts. I can literally see purple fur floating around in the air. And I guess that's it.